If you've reached your first $100,000 in annual revenue as a nonprofit organization, congratulations. You might be thinking, what do you do now? How do you grow your impact by growing your budget even further after this very important milestone? In this video, I'm going to share 5 tips that can help you think past that first $100,000. How do you grow your organization to the next milestone after that? Welcome back. My name is Amber Melanie Smith, and I'm a nonprofit founder and social entrepreneur that helps other people on their social impact journey, figuring it all out, getting started, and growing because it's hard. And if you're in this space, kudos to you. If you are in the process of starting a nonprofit organization or developing a fundraising plan for a nonprofit, you might want to check out my online courses at foundertofulltime.com that can help you with those 2 topics. I also have a newsletter you can join, and I'll leave the link below this video, that shares funding opportunities and other news in the social impact space, as well as some extra tidbits from me, and you can opt out anytime. So come on, join that newsletter if you'd like to. And I just want to say, if you haven't hit that $100,000 milestone in your annual budget yet, that's okay. I have a ton of other video content for you. Be sure to check out the rest of my library, especially my fundraising playlist that takes you all the way from 0, if you're starting with absolutely nothing, up through how do you get those major donors. So check those out. All right, so thinking back to my own experience growing the organization that I started, I feel like getting to that first $100,000 was definitely a unique and uniquely challenging aspect of running an organization. You know, at that stage, you are still raising awareness of your organization's existence, your brand, your mission. You're still inspiring those first few supporters to get on board. Your board of directors is probably still finding their footing. There's a lot going on in that first stage of nonprofit growth. But if you have reached that, huge kudos to you. You have come a long way, and you should be really, really proud of yourself. I'm saying that to lay the groundwork for the rest of this conversation, because if you've gotten to that milestone, that you are at a critical crossroads. You can now at this stage make some really important investments and decisions that can take what you've done so far and really scale it meaningfully, or you can not and perhaps stay stagnant or not grow to the scale that you'd like to grow to. So I'm going to go through these 5 tips that kind of outline what you should be thinking about at this stage to take that first phase of growth that you've now accomplished to the next level going forward. So the first of these 5 tips is that you at this stage need to get very serious about your fundraising strategy if you haven't already. When you're first starting out with $0 in the bank, you're kind of just throwing everything out there into various spaces to see what sticks. You might have applied for grants, you might have run fundraising events, you might have tried to approach some donors to help you out. And some of these things obviously worked because you got to this first $100,000. But if you don't already have a developed written fundraising strategy that your whole team has buy-in into, now's a great time to start. So your fundraising strategy should be a written document that should include several different things. And I also want to say this should be a strategy that you are ideally developing with the help of others in your organization, your leadership, your board members. If you have any staff, your staff should definitely be involved. At this stage, you might only have 1 staff person if you have any at all, if your annual budget's about $100,000. But don't do this alone, because one of the ways your strategy is going to work is by having a sense of ownership and buy-in from the other people on your team. So the first thing you want to make sure that you have in this written fundraising strategy document is an assessment of what your growth goals are. Where are you now, and how many people or animals, if you're an animal organization or environmental organization, how many people are you helping at this phase of your organization? Your annual budget is $100,000, and so you're helping X number of people, and how are you helping them? How deeply are you helping them, or how many different people are you helping? So let's say you've assessed that this past year with the $100,000 budget, you helped 100 people. Well, your budget shouldn't be an arbitrary amount of money. It should be based on how many more people you want to help the next year. So if you helped 100 people this year, let's say you want to help 200 people next year. Knowing that you want to help 200 people next year, you can kind of walk it backwards and do some research and determine what are the costs that will be involved in helping 200 people next year as opposed to 100 people the year before. This is all part of the budget planning process, but it really helps you to wrap your mind around fundraising the same way, because you don't just want to raise $500,000 just because you want $500,000. No, you want to raise that amount of money because it will enable your nonprofit to help so many more people. So once you've established your growth and your impact goal, now you can determine your fundraising goal, because your fundraising goal is the amount of money it's going to cost you to serve that many more people. All right, in your fundraising plan, you also want to estimate some timelines. What are your goal dates for reaching other various milestones in your fundraising journey? So if you're at 100,000 now, what is your goal date for raising the next 50, 100, $200,000? It doesn't have to be something that is set in stone, but having a goal date in place can really help your team focus their energy to meet that deadline. Another thing you want to include in your fundraising strategy is an analysis of your key donor audiences. Who has already been giving to your organization, and what are some groups that might connect to your mission but you haven't tapped into so far? Another part of this is who has already given to your organization who you think would be likely to make another gift in the future if asked at the right time. This is a recurring donor, and you want to be able to cultivate the relationship to keep them inspired to continue giving to your organization. So I recommend actually writing down the names of the donors that you think will give again, if you don't already have a donor CRM, which we'll talk about shortly here. But making sure that you are keeping really good notes on all the relationships and donors that you have built up so far. When thinking about reaching new audiences, assessing who's already in your current audience is obviously the first step, but how do you find these new people? You want to find the groups that are most likely to emotionally connect to your cause in some kind of indirect or direct way. For example, let's say you are an animal rescue nonprofit, and so far your donor base is made up of pet owners, people who already have pets, people who love animals. Well, what are some other organizations, businesses, or individuals who might have an emotional connection to animal rescue? I can think of a couple off the top of my head. You've got pet supply companies. They have a stake in people successfully owning pets because they can sell them their supplies. Veterinarian offices is another example. So reaching out to people in these worlds to cultivate more relationships might be a great way to find those new donor audiences in this particular example. Once you've thought through the donor audiences that you want to expand into, starting to think through some of the creative avenues to reach out to them and motivate them to give and give them opportunities to give. Things like friend raising or fundraising events, crowdfunding peer-to-peer, where people who are already donating or volunteering for your organization are inviting their networks to also donate. That can help introduce you to new people for sure. But getting creative about the how now that you know the who. So all of this is going into your written fundraising strategy document, which is going to be the roadmap for your organization, your team, taking the budget to the next level. One way to make sure you're really serious about the next phase of your fundraising is to make sure that you are investing in some great software to help you manage donors, grants, fundraising campaigns, and more. And for that, I definitely recommend Argenta software. So I have said this about Argenta in past videos, but as someone who has personally had to manage many different nonprofit functions in my own organization, from accounting to fundraising to administrative stuff and more, what I really appreciate about this solution is it's all in one. It can do everything in one single solution. So you don't need 5 different types of software to do all these things. This one solution can help you manage your donors. It can help you run your fundraising events. It can do your accounting. It can help you manage your staff and your projects, and so much more. It even has a front-facing form that you can embed in your website to collect donations from the public that feed right into the software. They make it super easy to subscribe and get started. I was able to create my account and start exploring all of the different features in a very short amount of time. As you're exploring new potential donor audiences and fundraising mechanisms to include in your fundraising strategy, you can also use Argenta to do everything from planning and facilitating ticket sales for fundraising events, running auction fundraisers, create a grant application calendar, which is super helpful, and produce reports and track and analyzing your fundraising data and successes, which is really great when you're trying to figure out if you're reaching your milestones. So like I said, I definitely recommend Argenta. I will leave the link to learn more about them below this video, but reach out to them. They're human beings. They're really invested in making sure nonprofits get what they need at various budget levels. So have a conversation with them. You can get a demo and just check them out. All right, so the second tip I'm gonna give you for growing past that first 100K milestone is diversifying your funding sources. If you haven't done this already, this is something you really need to think strategically about, because there are so many different ways nonprofits can generate revenue and some people don't even really know about. This isn't to say that you shouldn't continue investing in the things that you've already seen are working for your organization. For example, if you've done a really good job in building an individual donor base, keep expanding that. The more individual donors you have, the better. A common one people go to is grant seeking, but if you haven't explored this before, it's worth at least taking a look at to see if there are foundations or entities out there, even government agencies that do give out grants to nonprofits that might align well with your mission. I have a ton of resources and videos available specifically about grant writing, so I highly recommend you check those out. I have a playlist all about grant writing specifically, so check that out and check out all those different angles that I talk about grant writing through. Corporate partnerships are somewhat known, but in my opinion, are a somewhat untapped resource because companies can work with nonprofits in a variety of ways. You do have some companies who have a corporate foundation, so that's grants, but you can also go after sponsorships or brand partnerships or employee matching. If one of the employees of the company donates to your organization, sometimes companies will match the donation and also give you money, so that is a very helpful tip too. But one thing I want to go back to is the individual donors and how you can think a little bit more strategically about growing your individual donor base. It's great to get those one-off donations and introduce more people to your cause, but what you really want to focus on is trying to build a recurring giving program. This is where people commit to donating monthly, almost like a subscription to your organization. It can be $5, $10, $200, whatever the amount of money is that your donor base is likely to be able to afford and be interested in giving your organization as part of that ongoing support. And you message it by explaining just how meaningful and important it is for you to be able to rely on their support to grow your mission. You can also offer special recognition for people who are monthly donors. You might have heard of things like, you get a free coffee mug if you've been a donor for more than 6 months, little tiny perks like that aren't meant to feel like a transactional thing, like they're not buying the mug, but it's just a nice way of recognizing the donors. Thinking through stuff like that. Also, doing your research and really understanding planned gifts and bequests where people might decide that they love your mission so much that when they pass away, they're going to make a donation to your organization out of their estate. These two things, the recurring gifts and understanding the long-term planned giving, can help you expand your fundraising capacity a lot by allowing you to plan a little bit more into the future. And of course, you definitely want to consider earned income or program fees for a potential diverse source of funding for your organization if this is not something you're already doing. Earned income or program fees is when you sell your nonprofit's goods or services in a way that aligns and furthers your mission, and that generated revenue is poured back into the mission and expanding your impact. So things like how the Red Cross will come and do a CPR training for some amount of money per registrant. They're furthering their mission of making sure people are disaster ready, but they're charging a nominal fee to cover the cost of doing that. I have a lot more to say about earned income, of course. You can check out my other video. One of my more recent ones is called Can Nonprofits Charge for Their Services, where I go in depth on some of these ideas there. The third tip I want to offer to grow your income past 100K for your nonprofit is to strengthen donor relationships. I've talked about growing your donor base and the recurring giving, but I'm talking about something a little bit different here. What I'm talking about is donor retention and stewardship. It is way more cost effective to keep existing donors than to acquire new donors. So you really want to create a defined strategy on how you're going to keep your current donors. There are many techniques that nonprofits do this successfully with, including things like making sure your donors are invited to kind of get a behind the scenes tour of your impact and your mission, making sure you're sending them impact reports so that they see how their donation is making a difference. You can invite them to volunteer with you. A lot of people also like to give their time in addition to their money. And when people volunteer with you, they also feel more emotionally connected to your cause because they have personally experienced it up close. Another couple thoughts on donor stewardship, making sure that you're checking in with your existing donors just to say hello and see how they're doing as a human being every couple of months is something great to do, because you don't want to just be going to these donors every time you need a new donation. You want to make sure that they feel connected to you as a human being. You can also have conversations with them, invite them for coffee, ask their opinion on things going on with your organization, and ask for their feedback. How are they perceiving your organization's growth? What do they think that you might do differently? Or what do they really enjoy seeing from your organization? The fourth tip I'm going to share with you is that now is a great time to invest in your fundraising capacity. That could look like a couple of different things. And I want to say that it takes money to make money, right? And it takes investing money to grow your money further and your impact further. So don't be shy about thinking through what could you do at this stage to grow your ability to generate more revenue for your nonprofit into the future. One very obvious thing you could do is to hire some help. It might be the right time to hire a fundraising director or assistant at the very least to help take some of that lift off of your shoulders if you're the one doing most of this fundraising, and grow what you can do. 2 people can reach a lot more donors than 1 person can by sheer math. There's only so much time in the day. So investing in some help at this stage can really expand what you're able to do in a short period of time. And if not staff, there are other tools you can invest in to increase your fundraising capacity, such as investing in professional development or training on fundraising, grant writing, stuff like that, or even fundraising software like what I mentioned with Argenta before. Another thing you want to think about developing at this stage to increase your fundraising capacity, if you don't have this yet, is a case for support. A case for support is a document that basically outlines your organization's mission and specifically how donations to the organization will expand your impact. So there's a lot that might go into a case for support, but for example, your mission statement, your vision, some of your past impacts, what you've already achieved so far on your $100,000 budget, your growth goals. So some of those things that we talked about before, how you aspire to increase the number of people you serve year after year, and then what kinds of financial resources it's going to take to actually achieve that. Tip number 5 is, in my opinion, a fun one, and that is expanding community engagement. At this stage, you have started to get the name out there of your organization, hopefully building some brand awareness, but you really want to start focusing on how can you make people in the community feel like they are part of your mission. And part of this is also being looked at as a thought leader in the mission of your organization, the issue area that your nonprofit tackles. This will increase the credibility of your cause and attract more donors too. So being a thought leader means you are looked at by others in your community as sort of an expert in that field. If your nonprofit is tackling homelessness, you really want to aspire to become your community's go-to person on the issue of homelessness, and so forth. So doing things like speaking engagements, getting in front of, groups and clubs in your community, even tabling, making sure you're handing out brochures, keeping awareness and exposure to your organization very high, engaging the media in different aspects of the issue you're tackling will build that thought leadership too. And expanding your presence on social media, making sure that you're showing the stories of what's going on behind the scenes with your cause and how you are making an impact. I want to conclude this section just by saying some of this is trial and error. Just like the first phase of your organization where you were growing it to that first $100,000, you're going to want to try out some different things and really start paying attention to what the data is telling you about what is working. I'd love to hear from you at this point. Where are you in reaching this milestone? Has your organization already hit the $100,000 budget mark? Are you on your way there? What strategies have you tried to get you there? And what are you working on now to take your organization to the very next level? As I mentioned before, if you're in the process of starting a nonprofit or social enterprise or developing a fundraising plan, perhaps the strategy to get you to this next level, check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have those 2 online courses that are designed to help you exactly with those things. Other resources for change makers, funding opportunities, tips, etc. are all in my Changemaker newsletter that I will leave the link to subscribe to below this video. Don't forget to subscribe to that and check that out. You can opt out anytime, but I hope you can join and we can engage that way too. I also have my group on Facebook called Change the World or Bust. Over 5,000 people in there from around the world, maybe even some of you watching this right now, are engaging in there on how they're making an impact, and I hope you can join me there too. Thanks as always. I'm truly grateful to you for watching. My name is Amber Melanie Smith, and I will hopefully see you next time.